we're talking about a subject that's very serious, very real, and I hope that this video will be able to be eye-opening to you, will be informational, maybe even relatable if you're going through something like it. I really wanted to talk about anxiety and mental health in general because it is a subject that's not taken as seriously as it should. Anxiety is not, it's not feeling nervous for an exam, it's not being nervous for a presentation, it's not being afraid a failure or all of that. It's so much more than that. So what I want to tell you about today is my experience with anxiety and what it felt like. I know that there's so many different types of anxiety, so don't think that I'm generalizing. This is really about my experience. Anxiety is when you have fear and worry, but that's way over the top. It's irrational fear, irrational worry, where your mind projects you way further than you're supposed to. Your life starts to change around that fear, around that anxiety. Here's my story. My anxiety started around 3.5 years ago, and I believe what triggered it was me moving away from home. I moved away to California, which, as you know, is so freaking far away from home, from Morocco. I had a great first year, but things started to go downhill in my second year. What triggered my anxiety is the fear of losing a loved one, specifically losing my dad. My dad has always been quite sick, so this anxious thought has been in my mind as long as I can remember. Really, as a child, I could remember that was one of my fears. Like, oh my god, I'm gonna lose my dad now. Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my dad tomorrow. Alhamdulillah, he stayed with me a very long time. But when I was away in the US, I feel like I felt so far away from my family that the fear started to think, my anxiety started to think, you're going to lose your dad while you're so far away. And to be quite honest, that was one of my biggest fears. If I was going to lose my father, I really wanted to be by his side. I can tell you that fear I prayed for on the daily. If not many times a day, I prayed to God, I prayed to Allah, please, if I'm going to lose my father, please let me be close to him. If you've seen my last post on prayer, I spoke about when I pray saying that I understand what God is making me go through. So as I was praying to God to please let me be by my father's side when he passes, I still said, but God, if you decide that is not the case, I understand. And I understand that whatever you make me go through is part of my journey. It's part of my process, and it is needed for my development. And that you're making me go through the right things. Anyways, long story short, God was with me. So that fear ended up escalating. And my mind started to think, the reality is, we don't know who's going to pass away first. Even if a person is sick, I could pass away before them, you know what I mean? So I started to think, my life is random. You might not lose your dad first, you might lose your mom. And when I was thinking that I could lose my mom, I was thinking, oh, well, life is random. I could lose both of them at the same time, matter of fact. And you know, there might be some people that have these thoughts cross their mind like this, you know, and then the thought goes away. But with anxiety, the thoughts become so persistent, you cannot stop thinking about them. You become thinking about them so much that they almost become real. I started to feel the emotions and the feelings that I would have felt if I really did lose my father or my mother. My mind started to imagine literally every single scenario of those moments, of me getting that phone call, of imagining all the different types of movies of what my life would be like, starting that moment of losing my parents. And the feeling became real, like you start literally living those thoughts as if they are happening or they have happened. So my anxiety took me even further. And I really want to make this video lighthearted. I don't want to. I already filmed this video actually twice, and those 2 times in 2 different days, it just ended up being a sad ass video where I practically cried half of the time. So I really want to make this lighthearted. So my mind took me even further in my thoughts, and it said, Umayma, you could lose your aunt. You could lose your little cousin that you love so much. And of course, the thoughts take you as far as believing those things have happened or will happen very soon. It's like you're getting a vision almost, like, of those people passing away. So you start believing those things very much so. And so, let's say I also imagined that I would lose, that a possibility could be losing my little cousin. I started imagining what I would feel like. I started imagining with her mother, what my parents would feel like, what the whole family would, like, it's just a mess. Really, your mind is on 100 speed, thoughts wise, and it doesn't stop. And trust me, I wish I could stop it, because a lot of people tend to say, just stop worrying. Trust me, it's not like that, because if I could, I would. But it's really uncontrollable. Yeah, it's a mess. And then my anxiety was like, but what if you died? Oh man, I shouldn't be laughing about this, but my anxiety said, Umayma, what if you died, you know? What if your parents were the ones that would lose you? And for me, the loss of a child, like, as parents, has always been on my mind. To me, it's the worst pain anyone could experience, is losing a child. And so I started imagining my parents losing me. And I started imagining the consequences of that. Of my parents being absolutely ruined because of my loss. So I started feeling that pain for them. I was like, oh my god, I'm so far away and they're going to lose me and they're going to receive that phone call and oh my god, they're going to go absolutely crazy. And me loving my parents so much, I'm like, oh my god, it's so stupid, but I wish that even if I pass away, see, this is getting really emotional. Even if I pass away, I could be close to them. I could somewhat be close to them to make them feel better and make them feel like they can go through this loss. That they will be okay. Like, it's such craziness. I would be crying every single day. I had trouble sleeping every single night because my mind wouldn't stop thinking. I couldn't shut it down. I'm just bawling my eyes out, trying to make these thoughts stop. But it wasn't the case. I would go to classes, I would go to work, and my mind would not be in the present whatsoever. I would be imagining all these scenarios all day long. And I hope you can imagine how draining that must be. Because it really was. I felt tired. I felt so sick of having to think these thoughts. And my anxiety was so bad. This fear of losing my loved ones was so bad. It made me say, I do not want to have kids in the future. And to people that know me, you know that I absolutely love kids. I love being around them. I am the most motherly kind of person. And it comes straight from my name. Umayma means young mother, so you already know. So I said I didn't want to have kids because my anxiety took me to my future and it made me imagine Umayma being a mom. And I started literally feeling that love I would have for my children. And I imagined losing one of them and how much it would affect me. And I said, no, I don't want to risk that. I'm just not going to have kids. And see, that's when the fear and the worry really differentiates it from just stressing. I was ready to change my life around because of that fear. The thing with anxiety is that once it becomes severe, you can really start feeling the physical pain of anxiety. And for me personally, it was chest pains. I started I felt weight, like I felt like my chest was really heavy. Or as I would describe to my psychiatrist, I would tell her that I felt like I had a heavy ball, like a clump, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but something very heavy in my chest, and my heart would hurt sometimes because it was so painful. Like, those thoughts were so painful. I started to actually feel them. Nobody can tell you what depression or anxiety feel like until you go through them, until you know the hell that it is to go through them. I really want you that's watching to first acknowledge the importance and the seriousness of mental health, and two, now that you've understood, start being that voice to people. When you hear someone say, oh, I'm so anxious, or whatever it is, using mental illness terms to describe someone just doing their daily things isn't right, because there's people that are actually going through these things. And I can remember myself when I was a kid saying, oh, I'm so anxious, like, until I actually went through it, and it was like, wow, this is what anxiety is. With my anxiety being that bad, there was something else that started to happen, and that was guiltiness. I started feeling guilty for right about everything. I felt guilty for being away from my parents. I felt guilty that they were still spending money on me. I felt guilty to go hang out with friends or have sleepovers or go party as a normal teenager. I felt guilty for all those things, because my anxiety, and now I've understood it better, because my anxiety told me you're gonna lose your loved ones, and so the guiltiness told me, why are you doing all these other things? You should be staying with your loved ones. You should be spending time with them 100% of the time before you lose them. So that guiltiness took me to a whole other thing. I started to hate myself. I started to hate everything that I was doing. I wasn't sure of what I wanted, of what I should be doing. And that can really stop you from living your life fully. Because even when I went to hang out with my friends, I wasn't really there. My mind was somewhere else. It's really horrible and draining for one to go through so many thoughts, so many horrible thoughts a day that you're just gonna lose right about everyone. And it's so exhausting to feel guilty also to just be living your life. So now that I've told you what anxiety really felt like for me, I want to tell you what really helped me. To some, it might be seeing a psychiatrist. It might be taking some medicine. To me, it was this book. And although it didn't cure my anxiety, because what really cured it was me going back home and being around my family and really taking time for myself, this book made me survive. Really, that's the way I would describe it. This book made it a little bit easier for me to live through this, and that is The Power of Now. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere, or you've heard me speak about it, because I am the absolute biggest fan of this book, and especially in that time, I can tell you it changed my life. And it really made me so much more conscious, so much more aware, and I really do believe it can help you if you have anxiety or depression. Either or, I think it's a great book that really, I've said really so many times, that explains to you the importance of living in the present. Now, you know, we're all gonna go through really hard things in our life, but when you go through them and you survive and you make it through, it really makes you hopeful. And now, especially that I am past it, I still have anxiety from time to time, but thankfully it's really periodic. Whereas before it was on a daily basis, every single minute, second of the day. Get the professional help that you need. Ask for help, ask for support. If you're going through it right now, I want you to know that it is possible. It is possible to get better. It is possible to recover and to go on and live a better life. This was a very personal, very triggering story to share with you. But I hope you got something out of it, whatever that is. And I'll see you guys in the next video. You already know, I can't wait.